So Anthropic put out a talk on how they actually use Claude Code internally. And the whole internet picked the most boring possible thing in it to argue about. Because everyone fixated on one line, HTML versus Markdown. And they walk straight past the part that actually changes how you work with AI. And here's the thing, I'm not a developer. I do AI automation. So I'm going to pull out the two shifts in this talk that actually matter, even if you've never written a line of code in your life. Right, and the reason this video exists is simple. Every other breakdown of this talk is a developer nerding out over file formats. This is the practical version for people who just want their agents to do work properly.
Good to meet you all. My name is Arna. I'm a member of the Applied AI team. I'm an architect there. I'm here today to tell you how we Claude Code Anthropic. Do a workshop and you can code along. You'll get some credits. I think there'll be a QR code.
Let me give you the context first, because this isn't some random opinion on how to use Claude Code. This is Anthropic's own team in their own internal workshop showing how they personally work with the tool that they build. And that matters because these are the people sat closest to the model. So when they quietly change how they work, it's usually a sign of where the rest of us are heading. Now, I work with the AI agents every single day building automation systems. So I watch this through that lens, not a developer's lens. And that's exactly why I clocked the bit that most people skipped. So the talk has three parts. First, letting the AI interview you. Second, the HTML thing everyone argued about. And third, the part that genuinely stuck with me, which I'll get to near the end. And if you want to watch the full talk yourself, I've dropped the link to it, the repo they used, and my own notes breaking down all three phases in the AI Builders Boardroom. That's my school community for AI builders. Links below if you want to follow along. Right, so the first idea, and this is the one I agreed with the most. I want you to watch this.
What's good prompting, what's bad prompting? Bad prompting is when you say, just make it better. And a lot of people that I watch using Claude Code just type, make it better. That's not good prompting. You want to encourage Claude to extract from you specific details. So give the domains, don't over-specify the outcome, but specify the areas that you are interested in, right? That's what makes this good prompt on the side different and better. We're focusing on the audience, for example, or suggesting an open-ended way to answer the question as opposed to putting it up front. And then that will prompt Claude to the interview. All right, I've got a Claude open here, two different Claudes. Who here has used fast mode? Okay, not that many people use fast mode. That's why I set it up here.
So his point is that most people prompt badly. You type, make it better, and then you wonder why the output's rubbish. And instead of you trying to spec out every single detail up front, you let the agent interview you. You let it ask you the questions. And the reason this works is a bit counterintuitive, because he's basically saying the model is better at pulling what you want out of you than you are at describing it yourself. Because he's basically saying the model is better at pulling what you want out of you than you are at describing it yourself.
You need to be using auto mode. If you're not using auto mode, you need to be using auto mode. It makes it so much easier. Yeah, use auto mode. Good. Who here is setting their effort parameter? Good, good. Our recommendation is X high, but you can also set max effort. I mean, in my case, I think I kept it at X high for this. Yeah, so just to touch on how those look, right? Like we've got flash effort, which is the effort parameter, flash fast, which is the fast mode, which is I've turned it on. And then we have the auto mode, which we cycle into like this shift tab. Yeah, auto mode is the best. So I'll copy paste you all, when you have the repo, will see one of these prompts is in there. So I'll just copy paste the prompt in here on the bill splitting app. So, okay, Claude's gonna ask me, you tab through these, right? Like you'll tab through these like this. And in my case, I want it just for friends. And I wanted, is there a secondary audience? No secondary audience. And we'll leave that as that. The key thing here in the prompt is that you want to prompt Claude to use the ask user question tool that you saw me use in the prompt earlier before when we submit those answers, and then it'll write that spec, right? So you saw me in my prompt explicitly referring to the ask user question tool. That's what triggers this workflow, and depending on how well you specify that prompt, you'll get better outcomes. So it'll generate a spec. We could then turn that into a bunch of different ways of building the app. It's going to take a while, so we'll go back to my slides. Could I go back to the slides, please?
Now, I'll be straight with you. I thought that sounded like a stretch when I first heard it. But then I realized I'd already done this without knowing it had a name. So I was building a content system a little while back. And instead of writing this giant brief, I let Claude interview me. And I started answering its questions with my own questions back, just to see how far it will go. And then the bit that actually got me, there was one question I couldn't answer. I genuinely didn't know what I wanted. So I asked it for an alternative. And instead of just guessing, it gave me a set of examples to pick from. And the second I saw the options, I knew which one was me, which is the exact thing he says in the talk. You don't always know what you want until you see it. You recognize your own test, you just can't always put it into words. So that's the shift. You stop being the person writing the perfect brief and you become the person reacting to what the agent puts in front of you. And honestly, that's a nicer way to work.
Just about a week and a half ago, who here follows Tariq on Twitter? Fantastic, great, yeah. So he published that as a blog post called The Unreasonable Effectiveness of HTML Files. And he's basically pitching that moving on from Markdown files, we're going to be using HTML instead. And we're showing some of that today. Like I said, there's a repo to go along the way and later on in the week as well.
So one of the engineers wrote this post called Unreasonable Effectiveness of HTML, and it did millions of views in about a day. And the argument is basically this. So I want you to watch this.
It's much more economic for you to understand what the thing is going to look like. You can even use a screenshot with it. You can use the Playwright MCP later on for that as well, right? You can interact with it much more richly than you could with a very long Markdown file. And especially if the Markdown files get, they get more than about 200 lines long, it's unlikely you're going to read it, and certainly unlikely that your colleagues are going to read them.
We've all been getting AI to spit things out as Markdown, because back when this stuff first kicked off, every token mattered and Markdown was cheap. But now the plans and the specs the agent writes are getting long. And once a Markdown file goes past 100 lines or so, let's be honest, nobody actually reads it. You just scroll and approve. So his fix is to ask for HTML instead, because HTML is denser. You can see the thing laid out, and you can even click around it like a real page. Now, here's my honest take, because I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I haven't actually tried this one yet, so I can't sit here and tell you it changed everything for me, but the logic tracks, because I've definitely approved long plans I didn't fully read, and I'd bet you have too. So anything that makes me actually look at what agents are about to do, I'm interested in, and I'll report back once I've done it properly. Right, and now the part that nobody made a video about, which is mad because it's the most useful bit in the whole talk. So I want you to watch this.
Written a small, clear finish line. And so many things are happening here in terms of the state, and we'd like to verify that it's all working alongside the tests that are already defined. But these verification steps, we'd like them to be driven by an agent. There are three ways that we're going to do this. So we're going to do this in a human-readable way, but then that same way of doing it in a human-readable dashboard, we're going to verify in an agent-first way and let Claude do that separately. And then there's a separate way in the repo as well. You can just run verify, and then it'll just run the test matrix there. You'll get a slightly different result if you do it from the repo versus here, but the principle is the same. So human-readable, agent-driven if you're doing it from Claude Code or somewhere else, and then also just generally headless like you might do it in CI. We'll go here into the app. We'll have a look at it in a bit more depth. We'll go here into the app, and we'll actually look at, there we go, we'll look at element, actual emitting, so the emitting different data aspects, the data verify unit, the total done and active. The component itself here is publishing its state to the DOM. And so if I change my state here, I might add test again, so that updates, and I drop it, it updates again. So this is what the agent can read later, as opposed to having to scrape the DOM. You can just, if you publish the state here separately from the React internals, you'd be able to run the verification independently of whatever the state of the app is. And that's how this is set up to work. And then you can run this further down the line.
So I know this section is properly technical, and I'll translate it as we go, because it's a developer demo and I'm not a developer. He built a little to-do app, and then he sets it up so that an AI agent can check the app actually works on its own without him. And here's the clever part. Normally, if you want an agent to check a screen, it has to squint at the messy code behind the page and guess what's going on. So instead, he makes the app announce what it's doing. In a clean little spot, the agent can just read. Picture the app wearing a name tag that says exactly what state it's in. So now the agent doesn't guess. It just reads the tag and confirms everything adds up. And to prove it works, he plants a fake bug where the numbers don't match, and then the agent catches it instantly. Now strip away the React and the code because that's not our world. The actual lesson underneath it is dead simple. Don't just trust that the agent did the job. Build in a way for it to prove it did the job. And this is where it got a bit uncomfortable for me, if I'm honest, because someone asked me recently how I verify my automations, and the truth is I mostly don't. I just trust Claude got it right because it usually does. But that's fine when the job's small. The problem is we are all handing these agents bigger and bigger jobs now. And the bigger the job, the more it costs you when it quietly gets something wrong and nobody's checking. And if you've just watched that and you're thinking, I want the systems in my business to actually verify themselves, so I'm not the one babysitting them and hoping. That's exactly what we do at Loopsera. We build the whole system, set it up for you, and you own it completely. Links in the description. So let me bring this together because the internet looked at this talk and had a fight about file formats. And that was the least interesting thing in it. The actual story is that the way you work with these tools is quietly changing. You used to write the perfect instructions and hope for the best. Now, you let it interview you to get the instructions right at the start. And you build in a way for it to prove it did the work at the end.
The objective here at the end is to figure out how do you embed the verification into the artifact itself. There's more detail. I encourage you to check out the repo itself.
So it's a loop. It pulls the brief out of you properly going in, and it proves it nailed it coming out. And neither of these two things needs you to be a developer, which is the part I really want you to take away. Because this isn't a coding shift, it's a working shift. And it applies to anyone using AI to get real work done. Automation people very much included. So that's my read on it. The format war was a distraction, and the people arguing about it missed the actual point of the whole talk. Right, quick recap showed how they actually work with Claude Code. Let the AI agent interview instead of agonizing over the perfect brief, and build verification in so it proves its own work instead of you just hoping. The HTML thing's interesting too, but those two are the ones that matter. And the next thing I want to test is the HTML spec idea properly on a real build, so I can tell you straight whether it's worth the hype. So if you want to catch that, subscribing is the way to stay on it. Reminder, the full talk, the repo, and the notes on all three phases are in the AI Builders Boardroom. That's my school community for AI builders. Links below. And if you want help setting this kind of thing up for your specific workflow, I do one-on-one coaching. Links in the description. And I'm genuinely curious on this one. Have you ever let an agent interview you before it built something? And did it pull something out of you that you'd never thought to write down yourself? Let me know below.